This is the first video where I'm actually doing more of a deep dive into a series. I've reviewed manga editions in the past, but in those I felt like I didn't have much time to fully talk about a series. I'm excited now to talk more in depth about some of my favorite series in these videos. I'm passionate about a lot of manga, but Blame by Tsutomu Nihei is one that I'm most excited to talk about. It has a special place in my heart, and it's one of my favorite manga. Blame is still my favorite upis to this day. For a manga that doesn't have much dialogue or where the main character hardly ever speaks, taking me thoroughly engrossed in its story is a huge feat to accomplish, but Nihei did so with this venture. Because while it may lack in terms of dialogue, it more than makes up for it with visuals. By the way, this isn't to say that the story is lacking because it has little dialogue. Rather, it proved to me that an incredible story doesn't necessarily have to be told with words, and that it can be done through art instead. The story isn't given to you all the time in words, but instead shown, and that makes reading Blame a unique experience. That's not to say that it doesn't have dialogue along the way, because it does, or narration, but in comparison to many other manga, it has far less. How is it possible, though, that something with few words can be so successful? It comes down to the emotion and the feeling you get when viewing Nihei's panels, and the incredible job he does with world building, and how he not only tells the story with what dialogue is there, but also how he tells the story with his art. Some might think because Blame has little narration, it lacks direction, but to me that's far from the truth. At all times, Blame has a driving narrative, there's purpose, which is given to us through Killy. He is set out to find the net terminal gene, and everything else that happens along the way is either to help him in his endeavor to do so, or stop him from doing so entirely. What for me is really impressive is that, while some manga require narration or lots of internal monologue to keep me interested, Blame does not. One thing I have seen some people say about Blame which has somewhat bothered me, while it's true the manga leaves some things up to interpretation and allows your imagination to run wild at times, that's not 100% the case. You really can only run so far with your imagination in this story because you are given enough information to understand how this world came to be and the objectives of those within it, with the dialogue and with the art. I'm just worried that the way some people have described it may scare some people off from reading Blame by making them think there's no direction due to the lack of narration when there is. And by saying it's all left to your interpretation because, well, it is partially up to your interpretation, and you're not told what to believe per se, you're given the complete story every step of the way in the sense that you are given information over the course of the series, which helps confirm and deny the theories you form about Blame as you read it. What is a completely unique experience, though, is how you experience the journey, how you interact with his panels, and how they make you feel while reading. This story is unpredictable as you read it because you don't always know what's going to happen next, so that too makes it entertaining to read. I also want to quickly mention, Blame is essentially no filler, so if you're someone who enjoys manga where every panel feels significant, you definitely want to check this one out. While I have a lot of positive things to say about Blame, that's not to say it isn't without flaws because yes, at times it can be confusing. While it may seem like a manga you don't need to put your full attention into while reading, you will become lost if you don't give each panel and the dialogue that is there time to sink in fully. Also, sometimes when I see criticisms of Blame, it seems some people only focus on what it doesn't do, like telling a story through dialogue or it's too vague, rather than recognizing it for what it does right. If you go into Blame expecting a conventional manga, you most likely won't enjoy it, but if you go in with an open mind looking for a new experience, it will be much more enjoyable for you to read. Blame is one of those manga that completely changes the way you look at panels. Most of the time we speed past artwork that someone spent hours crafting, but Blame forces you to slow down. Even though it has very little dialogue and looks like a quick read, it isn't, because the art demands your full attention. You get sucked into every panel, every environment, every detail. Rushing through it means missing the story entirely. Nihei's art is truly something else. His use of negative space, deep blacks, massive structures, and surreal architecture, thanks to his background in architecture, creates a world that feels real, giant, and overwhelming. The cinematic flow of his panels makes you feel like the camera is constantly zooming, panning, and shifting like in a movie. At times it even reminds me of sweeping shots from Lord of the Rings. Huge landscapes, tiny characters crossing impossible spaces. You don't just read Blame, you interact with it. You feel like you're right beside Killy on his journey. The sense of scale is unmatched. Every location feels endless. Tunnels, caverns, bridges, entire empty voids. And even though the world is huge, the atmosphere somehow feels claustrophobic because you're trapped inside this massive structure with no clear way out.
The way Nihei shows these gigantic spaces compared to tiny human silhouettes makes the world feel alive and terrifying all at once. The story follows Kaylee as he searches for the net terminal gene, meeting enemies like the Safeguard and Silicon Life along the way. There are brutal fights, strange allies, and mysterious factions. And the character designs are insane. Techwear, cyberpunk, biomechanical horror, it's all there. Kaylee barely talks, but that silence makes every small moment with him more impactful. Chibo and Sonikan add even more depth to the story. And of course, the gravitational beam emitter is one of the coolest weapons in manga. It just obliterates everything. Blame stands beside series like Dorora Hedro and God's Land as unique sci-fi worlds, but none of them truly compared to what Nihei created. It's unlike any other manga, atmospheric, immersive, haunting, and beautiful. Honestly, I think anyone can enjoy Blame. It's one of the most unique reading experiences out there, and it stays with you long after you've closed the volume. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.